I'll start by introducing myself a little bit for those of you who don't know out there. My name is Alex. As for counting this day, I'm 29. I am from Denmark, from Odense, which is the third biggest city in Denmark. I have moved around a lot, but now I'm back here. In my early days, I was probably the most shy kid you could ever get. I couldn't look people in the eye, I couldn't speak with strangers. When I was done with the elementary school, I think I was 14 years old, 15 years old, I was deemed not ready to move on to the next level of education in Denmark. Not because my grades were not good, because they were all right, but simply because I was not aware enough of how to be a guy in society. So they threw me onto a 10th grade add-on where the main target was to get a little bit out of my comfort zone. It didn't really matter what grades I got in physics or math or whatever. So that really actually helped me. I got to redefine who I wanted to be. But what I also got was a year where I built up some kind of, I would say, confidence. But later on, I realized it was just arrogance. Like it was a facade. It wasn't really who I wanted to be, but it was better than being nobody, which was what I was before. But that led me to the high school, or what we call gymnasium in Denmark, where all of a sudden, this year that I have spent building this facade, this persona that I actually wasn't, that didn't work at a gymnasium with so many more people and a lot of youth, a lot of different people who are also confused about who they are. I couldn't be myself there either, or the version I thought was myself. So I spent 3 years in hell trying to develop who I actually was. And I was known on this gymnasium as the arrogant guy because I didn't talk to anybody. I spent the time with myself, and this was just a facade because I was insecure. So yeah, I spent 3 years in hell in the gymnasium where I didn't know who I was. And this actually panned out in such a horrible way that I was staying out of school. All of a sudden, I woke up one morning uh, not feeling any kind of motivation to go to school. This all was also happening while I was living at home with my mom, and she and I didn't get along in this specific time of period either. I actually ran away in this time, so I stayed at a friend's couch when I was 17, and I woke up one morning thinking, why do I want to go to school? There's literally no reason. I don't want to study anything afterwards. I don't want to, like, I don't know if I want to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever everybody else wanted to be. So I woke up without any purpose, and that scared me because the feeling quickly went from I don't know why I want to go to school to I don't know why I want to wake up today, and that's a scary feeling of you know self worth, or the opposite of. I suppose I have never had suicidal thoughts in any way, but I suppose that's where it starts. That you don't have a reason in your mind to wake up. So I told my mom this, even though we were not on the same level of mindset in this specific area. I told her everything, and she brought me to the doctor where I told him everything. And he said, okay, you need to go to see a psychiatrist, a psychologist. And I went through some questionnaire where I got points that in the end told me that I was severely depressed. And I asked the doctor, I don't remember all of this so specifically. I think my brain is trying to help me not remember much, but I do remember this. Asking the doctor, then what? What do we do? And his solution was a pill. You can take this pill, and then it won't make you happier. It won't work in that way, but it might numb you out so you don't feel this way as much. And I know my mom, so I could just feel her without looking at her, being like, no, 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 that's not what we're gonna do. And that was also my own value. That was also my own opinion. A pill cannot be the way for a 17-year-old guy to live his life from now on. So we declined and went home to look for different ways. My mom had her ideas. I went online for my ideas. I went to YouTube where I literally just typed in how to get purpose, how to get confidence. And then I found there were influencers. And bear in mind, this is 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So it's before the term influencer became famous, at least here in Denmark. But there were some influencers speaking about how to get more confidence, how to style yourself better, how to behave a certain way so that you can maybe get a little bit more confidence in the everyday life. And I just absorbed all of it. I spent my entire time on YouTube. Whatever people did in school, I did not do in school because I was just on YouTube watching these guys. Everything from top 10 things you need to wear to look this way to actually videos where they approach strangers on the street asking for random things that their comment section might have suggested or whatever it might be. And I was looking at it. They were doing things, either they were dressed a certain way or just speaking in a certain way, where I was like, how the fuck do you become that way that you have the guts to do so? And the only way I could see, and they also said that I needed to do this, was to copy it. Do as they did. So when the video said, hey, you need to go up to this random person and do 10 push-ups in the middle of the street, I did that. And I took all these things, all these random ass dares, or whatever you can call it, and I did that for 5 years, maybe, with a bunch of friends, because I found out I wasn't the only one. So I showed these videos to some of the guys I was talking to, and they kind of had the idea that maybe I could use this too. So I think we were somewhere between 5 and 8 guys, not always the same people, but interacting and intertwined between studies and friend lists, who were looking at these videos, literally just sitting down with our phones or whatever, taking notes like, oh, he's doing this, he's doing that. Okay. And then we would, because this was the time where we just got 18, which is the age in Denmark where you can go out and drinking. So we went to the bars where we knew people, and I spent Thursday, Friday, Saturday going out, drinking, which I'm not recommending you do. It was fun. But I went out maybe 3 days a week for years where I did this. And I would literally have my own list of dares that we wrote down ourselves, put them in a hat. And I know this sounds stupid, but we did this physically. We put it in a hat that we brought into the bar, into the club. And then each guy took their turn taking something up, like a dare. And then it would say, find 2 girls and make them guess if you're gay or whatever. And if you didn't do it, you had to buy shots for the guys. And bear in mind, we didn't have any money, so we didn't want to spend it on alcohol. So yeah, you could either do this stupid thing, which would make you feel embarrassed and awkward, or you could, spend all your money, which was also stupid. And that's how we did it for years in a row, like on and on and on. And these things obviously developed into more and more things. And all of a sudden, I found out, even if I look stupid, even if I feel embarrassed or awkward right now, nothing changed. Yeah. Somebody might have laughed at me. And they might have went to their friend or girlfriend or whatever and say, this guy is fucking awkward. That's fair and square. But I'm still here. I still have my guys. There's still water in the faucet. Trees are outside. Nothing changed. Nobody died. And the more I got this feeling and just kept on doing it, like repetition, the more I realized within myself that whoever I was before this was someone I made myself. Maybe not voluntarily and knowingly, because we're just brought up by people like parents and friends, and then circumstances if you're brought up in a poor family, in a poor neighborhood or whatever. But you are doing this to yourself. I found that out the hard way. But that also meant a good thing, because it meant that I could do the exact opposite. If I was the reason for my behavior and the way I was thinking today, I could also change that. I could be the reason for the other behavior. So I started changing that, spent a lot of years doing this random shit, lost some friends, gained some new ones, and then I started working in the nightlife industry because I was at the bar so many times a week that everybody got to know me. I knew all the bartenders, I knew the owner and whatever. And I applied for a job and I got rejected, and I applied for the job again and I got rejected. And after a few times, I was called in for the job interview. And then he said to me, hey, I'm not saying there is a job, but I'm just now opening up for interviews. And I said, oh, it doesn't really matter, because if I don't get this job this time around, I won't be mad at you. But there'll be a new application tomorrow, because I'm going to try again. And this mindset of mine of trying again wasn't something that came naturally either. But he laughed at me, the venue manager, and I got the job. I asked to be the bartender, because that's the cool thing to do. And I was hired as a runner, which is, well, at least at the time in this establishment, not the cool thing to do. Later on in my life, I have learned now that the runners of the venues, like clubs and bars, those are the real heroes. Not that being a bartender or a host or whatever isn't being a hero either. But if you know the nightlife industry or the service industry, you know that those guys running around, those are pulling their their weight. So I got to do that, and believe it or not, I had 3 shifts tops as a runner. And I went to the manager, and I didn't cry, but I whined about how tough it was, and I hurt my hand, and this wasn't really what I wanted to do. I really wanted to be in the bar, and he looked at me, and he said, "Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I will put you in the identification scanner window," which was a thing at this time. It wasn't the wardrobe, and it wasn't as a doorman or security anyway. I was sitting in a window that is I had no more space than I have on this chair right now. Literally just looking at everybody's identification walking in. And I did that for 1.5 years maybe. It didn't make me look any cooler. I got to know a lot of people because I literally greeted everyone walking in. But after a certain time, I got a little bit more confident in myself, and I gained the balls to ask the manager one more time, "Hey, I've been doing this for some time now. Can we maybe, develop me into the bartender where I thought, help a little bit more, but I meant be the cool guy?" And he looked at me and he said, "You know what? I think I have room for you in the wardrobe now." So I went to the wardrobe, and long story short, I worked there for maybe a year before then being asked actually if I want more responsibility within the bar itself. Behind the scenes, I was asked if I wanted to lead a small group of people who were seen as the marketing guys, the people who knew everybody coming in so they could sell the tables, they could sell the beverages. And I was a part of this team already just because I wanted to be a part of more. And the guy who was supposed to be ahead of it got promoted into another position, which meant they wanted to find someone new. So they asked me. And I immediately just jumped at it. I didn't even ask for what the salary was or whatever, because I was just stupid. But I jumped at it, and for half a year, I led that team, while at the same time maybe getting one shift as a bartender. And then the guy who was before me was hired as the venue manager of a nightclub within the same city. And he didn't last long there because of some internal struggles or whatever. But that made the position be open. And I always went to the manager and say, I want more, give me more responsibility, give me more things to do. And all of a sudden they asked me, "Hey, okay, you sure you want this? Because it will require you to come to this other bar first to be taught how to be the venue manager for a certain amount of time. You'll be removed from all the people you know, all the people you care about here in this establishment, put into a group of people who are older than you are, for only to be there for 3 months being taught everything, for then to become the manager of a third establishment where you don't know anyone." And I'm the kind of guy, or at least I try to be as often as possible, that when I say A, I want to do this, I also say B, I'm going to do it, no matter what the actual A is. So I said, yes, I want to be a venue manager. And then they presented me with this option. So I had to say, sure, I still want to be a venue manager. Long story short, I went to the other place, got my education of being a venue manager, and then got my very first nightclub of my own, where I was the manager. Nobody above me. Of course, we had a regional manager, but I was the manager, the guy there. And I'm telling you this story now because I would not have been any of that. None of that would have been happening for me as a person without influences on YouTube. I don't think the pill from the doctor would have done anything. Maybe it would have even made it worse, because numbing emotions might not be the right path for anything really. So without a certain group of people online, I think one of them called Alpha M, Aaron Marino, shout out. Angry Picnic, one of some of the other guys who did random stuff. Charisma on Command. A lot of these influencers who had genuinely great ideas and were filling a gap, at least in my life, those were the ones forming who I became. So I rebuilt myself that way. If that didn't happen, I would not have been a venue manager, which means that all the people I have worked with since then would not have had me as a leader. And I believe that I have helped a lot of people become a little bit more self-aware and a little bit more confident in their life through my own experiences.
It's for everybody trying to change the destination. It's for everybody trying to make a